Greetings. Welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track first installment of Buffy Watch Season 1. And we're very excited to be talking about this wonderful show. And I'm very excited also to be here with this group of folks. And I would like to have each one of them introduce themselves, give you some information and about themselves. And also, when you do that, tell us a little bit about how you got into the show. When, did you watch it from the beginning? Did you find it later on? How did that all work for you? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
All right. My name is Kevin Batchelder. I am the assistant track director for the Urban Fantasy Track and longtime panelist for Carol and others at DragonCon. Had tons of fun talking on Buffy panels there. I came to Buffy not when it was on TV, but shortly after. Showing my age, I did it via Netflix DVDs by mail. So going back 20-ish years or so.
Okay. Davior.
Yeah, everyone. Hey, my name is Daviar Snipes. I'm coming to you from Canada, Georgia boy, now living in Canada, working at the Festival Theater. And I'm one of the lucky ones that I had Buffy originally. I came to Buffy at the beginning of season 2, like my first year in college. And a friend of mine had told me about it after the first season. And actually, in our speech class, he did a presentation on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that's what got me to kind of check out the show. And I was hooked from the time I started watching it. So happy to be here now with you all talking about it.
Well, thank you. Marks.
Hey, I'm Marks Pyle. I'm a filmmaker, podcaster, writer. I have a Master of Fine Arts in Popular Fiction. And I've been watching Buffy since that very first episode aired. And I've been hooked. I think I've been looking for ever since the next show to get that Buffy feeling. So that's why I watch so much urban fantasy.
There you go. Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Puerta. I am a staff member on the Urban Fantasy Track, and I also have a MFA in film and television. I started watching Buffy at the young age of 9 with my dad on, I think it was Tuesday nights then. And I think it was season 2 because just basing it off being 9 years old. I think it was pretty sure it was season 2. So
okay. And Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Dolner. I write paranormal fiction and nonfiction. So basically the things Buffy fights are the things I like to write about. I am a super, super latecomer to Buffy. I did not watch the entire series until probably about 6 years ago and plowed through all 7 seasons in, just a few months. I would catch episodes on TV every now and then, but Buffy debuted my freshman year of college and we did not have TVs in our dorm room, so it wasn't that convenient for me to watch. So I had to wait a little while.
But you caught up, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
And I will say that I did watch it from the beginning. It actually had gotten some pretty good press in advance of beginning. And some of you who did watch it, well, in Marks's case, I think you were the one who started watching it at the very beginning. It had gotten a lot of notice, and the fact that it got some notice and got written up that many years ago is something. I mean, people can take for granted what the internet does now in terms of letting us know about things months in advance, but I'm talking about print sources. And that it did show up in there. And so yes, I was on board from the very beginning, and it has remained my favorite show. And kind of like Marks, I'm not really looking for anything to kind of measure up, but I think you do hold it as a standard to what you expect other things to do, and some other shows meet those standards in some ways, and some do not, I think. But in any case, it's a show that is well beloved by many people, certainly by everyone on this panel, and we're very excited to start talking about it. Now, the first thing that I would like to ask you about is Did you have a favorite episode? Now this is a shorter season, so maybe only, one or two that you can say. The favorite episodes, or even maybe, particular scenes that really got to you, even if the rest of the episode was not something that you just adored. And was there one of the episodes that you could have lived without, that you think that you didn't enjoy as much, and that maybe the series as a whole didn't really have to have as part of their oeuvre, let's say? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
Well, let's see. As anyone who is a Buffy fan knows, season 1 is rough at best in many of the episodes, especially compared to later seasons. So I think, as a completist who always watches every episode of every season in a rewatch, I don't skip any of them. But if you've got some newer folks coming in, I will certainly tell them you can skip a lot of season 1, because there's a lot of one-offs there, at least in my opinion. I, Robot, You, Jane. Oh, okay, or whatever. I mean, there's a few that really are missable. But as far as season 1 episodes that I adore, Prophecy Girl is just cornerstone, with so much key stuff happening there, plot wise, story wise. I absolutely adore the hero's walk to the theme song at one point in there that only happens once in the entire 144 episodes of the show. That and how can you not be emotionally broken with the Giles, I'm 16 years old, I don't want to die scene. So that's Prophecy Girl is certainly going to be my favorite.
Okay. Davior.
Ooh, I love these conversations because you get to hear all these different opinions. Because actually, season 1 has actually, over the years of rewatching Buffy, it ranks higher on my list every time I watch it. And so for me, my favorite season 1 episode is Welcome to the Hellmouth, very first episode, because it is amazing how much of what the show is was solidified in that very first episode. Like who the characters were, what Buffy's conflicts were going to be, her dynamics, her dynamics with her friends, and who Giles and who everyone was as a character. It was already there from that very first episode. Because normally a great show, especially one that runs for 7 seasons, kind of has to find itself in what its focuses and themes will be. This one from the get-go was solidified in what its focus was and what its ideas were. And that was because, of course, because of Joss Whedon being there from the beginning and that being his idea. But it's all there, and I love that about it. Actually, one of my favorite scenes from first episode is actually in the pack, which is an episode that has also grown on me, because I love the metaphor of when the one friend changes that used to be a part of the group or used to be a part of the clique, but now is too cool to hang out with you. And that scene he has where he insults Willow and she breaks down because this her best friend, this person that she loves, tells her that he can't stand her because he's been possessed by hyenas. But in that moment,
right?
Okay,
or is that little detail?
Yeah. But that aside, but the emotion in that is so real, and it's one of those things that I hang my hat on this show all the time. I would say my least favorite episode of season 1 is probably going to be Out of Sight, Out of Mind. It was one of those episodes that I thought had a lot of potential, but it doesn't quite work for me. So it's and it's the only time Buffy got the chance to fight an invisible person, so to speak. So I wish they would have done more with that. But that's I'll kick it off here for the first.
Okay, Marks.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like the true spine of it, I feel, is like the first 2 episodes, Angel, and then the last episode, and they all kind of, that's like the strongest writing I think throughout the season with the characters and the arc. But I think the pilot, like you were saying, is a great example of a good pilot. Like the first 15 minutes, they've introduced like all the major characters, and you get a good vibe on who they are. And by the end of the episode, you got a good idea of what this show's like, which is saying a lot because it was very different than any show before.
Right.
And whether you love or don't love the movie, because it was pretty camp. It's even, it's a little campy at times for people. they had to like show how it was different and I think a lot stronger overall. But it's hard. So like Kevin said, iRobot Eugene is probably the weakest of them. Like the guy going, I'm jacked in. It's just like, what?
Yeah, that was a little bit of over the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
But that
Just-
guy,
yeah.
but Ash is in there, right? The actor played Ash in Supernatural's in there. I was watching it go, wait a minute, who is that guy? Oh, it's Ash, And there's so many great actors. Clea Duvall, who in Carnival and a bunch of other stuff, is in The Invisible Girl in there. There's a bunch of other actors. Eric Balfour is Jesse in the pilot, right? And that's he's going on to go in Haven. So even some of those weaker episodes, and even those weaker episodes, as you were saying earlier, they have strong themes that we can relate to, and that makes them, still like with the pack, because the pack could be a little cheesy in a way, but it has a very strong theme, and that scene with Xander is very emotional. And they eat the principal, and we can't forget about that.
Yeah, right. Okay, Anna.
Oh man, I think Welcome to the Hellmouth is probably one of my. It really does set the tone for this whole show, and it is one of my favorites. I think, that's like the debate of which one to put in the bottom is been, but I think it has to be Teacher's Pet for me, because every time I rewatch season 1, I like Xander like less and less,
Yeah.
And his whole like oh, someone else is paying attention to me, oh, Buffy, you're so jealous, like, is so annoying that I just wanted to like punch him in the face. So I think those are my answers.
Okay. And Beth.
I actually have 2 favorites from this season. One of them is Puppet Show. I think it's really well done in terms of the creep factor, and I love the misdirection that we think it's going to be this demonic dummy, and then it turns out to actually be a demon hunter. I love that twist. The other one I really like from this season, I'm going to actually disagree with Deviora here, is Out of Mind, Out of Sight, and that's because one of the things I love the most about Buffy is the way they take these themes and the things that we all dealt with as teenagers and that so many of us went through. And even though it's being told as a supernatural kind of a story, it's so relatable to things that we've all experienced. And I love this idea of somebody being so ignored and so forgotten by her classmates that she literally turns invisible. And I just thought it was a really poignant episode. Least favorite, I'm gonna kind of go with everybody else and say iRobot Eugene. I love the concept. I love the idea of an ancient demon finding himself on the internet, but the 90s technobabble and just kind of the slow pacing, it was kind of, okay, we know where this is going. Let's just get there. Let's skip to the end.
Okay, well, it seems as though that one was picked as a lesser loved episode by a larger number of people than anyone else. So that's kind of interesting, because that doesn't always happen. When you ask these kinds of questions. Now, granted, there are only 12 to pick from this season, but still, that is interesting that that you guys had their reaction. The only thing I would like to interject is that the thing that bothered me about the pack was the idea of, Principal Flutie, poor guy. But that whole thing really bothered me because I don't like, for me, I have a few things that, you shall not pass kind of thing when I don't want to read about it or watch it or hear about it. And cannibalism is one of them. And yes, they were possessed, but they were still in human form when it happened. So to me, that
also
was
the pig. The pig was really cute.
The pig.
And I'm really sad about that little pig getting eaten.
I was sad about the pig, but the thing is that everybody eats pigs, unless you're a vegetarian. But you eat some form of it at some point in time. And yeah, that was gross. And you're like, oh, poor pig. I forget his name. but or I think when it's actually that other aspect of it, other just bothered me. But I did find, I think it was Davior that you were talking about the way that the discussion, or when Xander was saying the things that he was saying to Willow, that was just so devastating, and just to watch her face, and to know that he then to find out later that at the end of the episode we find out that he actually did remember all those things, but Giles says, well, I'll keep your secret or whatever. But in any case, now the next topic I wanted to talk about is that this season does take pretty much a monster of the week approach, for how they're telling the stories. And I think that they had a couple of reasons for doing that. I think one was because it did help set the tone for, what kinds of crazy stuff we might see for the next several years. But I think it also helped to build the world that, it's giving us an idea of not just the kinds of things that we would see, but where did those things come from? How would the characters react, in any of these given situations? And so my question for you guys is that which storyline or aspect of this Monster of the Week approach did you find the most effective in accomplishing setting things up for future seasons? And Davior, we'll start with you.
Oh, God. Only focusing on the Monster of the Week. Okay, so which Monster of the Week did I like the best? Okay.
Well, no, what I mean is it could be either that part of it, or the fact that, it's being used to build the world. You can, or to set the tone. But you can pick a storyline if you want. So, and there are different ways to approach the question, I suppose.
You know what? I'm going to defend Me Robot You Jane, since it was clowned on earlier in this podcast. And I think, but not just because that, but I do genuinely like that episode because there is a component to it that is silly, but I like, and this is what Buffy would continue to cement through its run, when you take these real world aspects and flip it with something that is horrific. And for me, I like that the most vulnerable of the group, Willow, at that time, was the one who was subjected to it, was the one who was in peril. And I like how she was in peril. It wasn't just because, there's a monster that's going to get you. She was emotionally manipulated, which for me is kind of, especially when you're talking about high school kids, is one of the most dangerous and dark ways to like destroy someone, is to emotionally and mentally manipulate them, especially for someone like Willow, who's always searching for love and to be desired, and to have this thing kind of find her and tell her everything that she's wanted to hear, and then it turns out that it was a demon trying to manipulate her. So something like that really connected to me, particularly with that character. So kind of like how that show would use elements like that, and how but not only these connecting a horrific element to a real world situation, but then how it would then channel that to a specific character and find and kind of connect to what their id or what their particular thing is or obstacles were or desires were, is something that was so always well written about Buffy. It was always personal, and it was always specific to each character. And you see that particularly with Buffy's relationship with Angel and Xander and his growth. So it's always done. So I'll use that episode to kind of highlight how the show did that.
Okay, great idea. Okay, Marks.
If we just talk about episodes in general, I think like Angel, because Angel probably shows us, besides developing an eventual spinoff, shows us that not all monsters are evil, which becomes more important later to accept Spike and Anya and witches and everything else as the characters become a little more supernatural, besides Buffy. And I just thought it was a fun story, and one of a few times the monsters actually pull out guns.
Yeah, that was
yeah. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. I think sets up tones for the overall world a lot, because it does, I guess it fleshes out the vampires beyond just being, monsters. It makes them a little bit more, adds a little more depth to them and eventually to their world. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're not all one note at that point. So, Okay. Anna.
So I think for me, it's maybe nightmares that sort of sets up the weird places that this show can go. Is I guess how I'll say it. There's lots of different monsters that come through because of the Hellmouth, or metaphysical type things that happen because of the Hellmouth. But I think nightmares is kind of like one of those, this is just really, really freaking weird. And the fact that they did that in season 1, it feels more like a, season 3, season 4 kind of risk for episode than a season 1. And I think it really helps sort of set the tone that this show's gonna get weird.
Right. Yeah, these are some examples of what you can expect to see.
Yeah.
Yes. Might never know what's coming. Beth.
I'm going to go with Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. I think that episode really highlights how Buffy wants so desperately just to be a normal teenage girl, and try as she might, she absolutely cannot do it. But I like that also we see that Willow and Xander are always there in this episode, even sometimes when they're not wanted, when Buffy's trying to go on a date with Owen. But I think that really sets up their relationship nicely, that, they have her back no matter what all the time. And that's something, of course, that Buffy's never had before. So I really like seeing that develop a little bit more in that episode.
Okay. Yeah, that Owen was a little bit, he was kind of scary himself. That, as she put it at the end of the episode, she says he wants to be Danger Man or Danger Boy or something. Yeah. Okay, Kevin.
Well, you were talking earlier, Carol, about the approach to asking the questions of the group and rotating, so someone can't steal your answer at least once in the entire thing. And on this one, as soon as you asked the question, I had an answer, and as each person goes, I'm like, safe. And we got to Beth, and it was like, there it goes. That was going to be my choice, because we have so many of these shows with the chosen one or the special one, and they work so hard to keep this from impacting a real life, if you will. So that's a strong theme, I think, for me too. The other one too, though, is very much coming through in Prophecy Girl. Not that it isn't throughout the season, but as we really see going forward, the idea of, with Buffy, she's not a lone slayer. She's got the Scooby Gang, and how important that is in the development of her, and why she's different, and why she's able to survive. And I think this episode, certainly, as we see there, is when everybody's getting involved to some degree. Heck, even Cordelia is a getaway driver and other stuff. So it's great to see everybody weaving in and out at different times to be part of it. So I think that's very foundational to where we're going to go in the future seasons.
Yeah, Cordelia driving that car into the school or something. Anna?
I was going to say also, Never Kill a Boy on the First Date gave us If the Apocalypse Comes, Beat Me, which is
right.
Classic.
Yeah. I used, I actually made a quote, or I made a post about that on Facebook recently, using that quote. And it was, somebody had made a reaction. They're like, "What's wrong, Carol? What's going on?" And I thought, okay, well, this is somebody who hasn't seen Buffy, so I had to explain. I was like, "Oh, it's okay. Everything's fine here." But anyway, just in relation to some other things going on in the world at the time. But now, in episode 11, I'm kind of skipping ahead in terms of this, but the question is about what we see about Cordelia, and so that was actually a nice segue, Kevin. Thank you for We didn't plan it ahead of time. Out of mind, out of sight. We actually get to see something different about Cordelia. We get to see her as something more than the mean girl. And, at the end, she comes and, she thanks the Scoobies, which they weren't called yet. I think Willow had suggested in one of the early episodes that they be called the Slayerettes. Well, thank goodness that didn't stick. But in any case, when Cordelia comes to thank them all at the end, and you helped me when you didn't need to, and then her boyfriend comes up, and that all changes. But in any case, we get to see more development of her character in that episode, and you can use either that, Cordelia's little bit of growth that we get to see as an example, but also any of the other characters besides Buffy. What kind of growth did you most appreciate that you saw happen within just this season? I mean, all of us know what's going to happen in the future, but in terms of this season, was there a particular character whose growth that you thought, okay, I really enjoyed watching this? And Marks, you're up first this time.
Oh boy. I mean, they all grow a little bit, although since I've seen the whole show, I know they grow a lot more. So
right.
Gosh, I don't know. It's kind of hard to pick. I mean, Xander actually grabbed a guy once. That was brave.
Yeah.
So in some ways, Xander grew, in some ways he didn't, right? Because that finale, he was a bit of a jerk whenever Buffy turned him down. I forgot who said it, but yeah, I forgot how much of a jerk Xander could be in season 1. Because
I believe it was Anna saying that
Yeah, he came off a little. I was getting a little like, oh gosh, come on, dude.
I did get out of the fact though that he said he was going to go home and he was going to do something and listen to country music. And then when we see the scene of him, a few scenes later where Willow's trying to call him and he is laying on his bed listening to country music. But anyway, go ahead.
But besides that slip, he did grow over the season, where he became a little more brave and a little bit more. And I guess also I guess he made up for it in Prophecy Girl because he was probably the bravest ever, right? By getting Angel and them going down there and trying to help Buffy and saving Buffy with CPR. So I guess if I would pick one that wasn't Buffy, it'd be Xander, even though he was kind of annoying, but he did grow a bit.
Yes. Okay. Anna's shaking her head, but okay.
Disagree, but it's okay. My pick is gonna be Willow, actually, and I think sort of throughout the season, like if you see, like if in episode 1. She is just so timid and like being bullied, basically. And then, by the end of this season, she has grown so much. I mean, to the point where she's like telling off Cordelia like multiple times in those last couple episodes. She's rushing in to, fight alongside everybody. And she's really kind of growing out of that initial timidness that we saw. And I think sort of along the way there's lots of different points where she has these growth moments and gets a little bit more confidence, and I think I Robot You, Jane, although it has received some hate on this, is part of that as well, because we do see her really like stand up to him at the end, and I think from that point on she really just starts to hold her head a little bit higher. So
yeah, she even tries to beat down. She picked up some implement in the finale when they were when the vampires were trying to get in through the through the library doors, and she's beating on them with something. I was like, that that would be a kind of reaction you would have, but would that have been the reaction that Willow would have had in the beginning?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think so. Yeah. So.
Okay. Beth.
I'm gonna go with Giles. When we first meet him, he's so fussy and traditional and just so staid. And then in episode 3, The Witch, we see him, and he even talks about it. It's the first time he's ever done a spell. And of course, in later seasons of Buffy, it's hard to even imagine a Giles who's never done any kind of spell work before. And then, of course, in I, Robot You, Jane, he teams up with Jenny Calendar to do some more magic. And I love the banter between the two of them in that episode. So for all of that episode's faults, it does have some really fun moments. So yeah, and I feel like we see him relapsing from watcher role and becoming more of that father figure to Buffy and to some extent to Willow and Xander as well. So I kind of like seeing him kind of relax into the role and be more pliable in terms of what he's willing to do and what he's willing to let Buffy get away with.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think that him never having done a spell before is probably a lie, since he was like the Ripper.
Yeah.
Oh right, that's right.
And so I mean, when they wrote season 1, they might have thought it was true, but then they gave it backstory.
They had to backpedal, or they're like, I hope nobody remembers that, or has a notebook.
He was just covering. He's like, oh boy, that was hard spell.
Oh, hard stuff. These spells.
These spells. Ooh, did I say that word right?
Yeah, really. Okay, Kevin.
Well, I think at this point, I'd like to request that I don't go after Beth on our next event because she took my answer again.
Great minds, man. Great minds.
Yeah, great minds. I would definitely, Giles is the one that, pops straight to mind, thinking of the development of the characters here in season 1. But we can make a case, maybe except for Xander, for almost all of them. I think Marx is out there on an island by himself, but that's okay.
I'm doubting myself
Be
now.
strong, Mark. Be strong.
It's the bad thing about being first. You just freak out.
No, and that's certainly for me, though. This question brings out a great thing that I think about when I go to season 1. Yes, there are some much weaker episodes than we're going to get in later seasons. But it's also nice because unlike some shows that struggle giving each of the characters in the Scooby Gang, as a lot of them have, a chance to grow in a first season, this one does a good job of giving all of them a shot at getting some type of get out in front or show their skill set. So they all, to a certain degree, too. But besides Giles, I would certainly lean on Willow, as was brought up before, that she got a few chances to really step out and be way outside her comfort zone, as we're going to get to see a lot more developed there too.
Okay. And Davior.
Well, I would like to request that I don't go after Beth or Kevin next time because we're going for the three-peat. It's Giles, my second favorite character on the entire show. And for me, that is solidified in Prophecy Girl when he tells Angel that Buffy's not going to fight the Master, I am. And that through the course of that season, he has grown so close to her. That father-daughter dynamic is so already there that they didn't wait to try to develop that in season 3, that it was there in that first season, that he is willing, knowing that he has no chance against the Master. He is willing to go out there and take that bullet for her so that she doesn't have to risk her life. And that is so meaningful in regards to not only where he is when they first meet in that library, but to where they end up by the end of that first season, but also just where they're going to go over the run of the show and just how that relationship will continue to grow and become even more dynamic, and especially in the later seasons. So I just think, for me, it's Giles.
Okay. Well, and as you can see, as a former librarian, how could I not love Giles? And as being a bit of an Anglophile myself, yeah, he's very cute. And I promise that I won't do with him as I did with Crowley, but I thought since several people mentioned him, my only Willow is the Dark Willow, so we'll take care of that much later on. Now, to get to our main character, herself, there are a couple of times that Buffy has kind of two what I think of as being defining characteristics of her. One is in the first episode, at the end of the first episode, when she makes the decision. She's already told Giles, I'm not doing that anymore, so you people need to leave me alone. I'm not going to be a slayer anymore. I don't, I'm just not going to bother with it. Find someone else. But then when she's at the Bronze and she sees Willow being taken, that for her is that everything else falls to the side, and she's got to go do what she needs to do to get Willow back. So she is able to, kind of overcome her reluctance, I guess I could say. And then when a couple of times we've talked about the Angel episode, or Marks, you've mentioned it, and I think we probably should talk about that episode a little bit more after this. But even in that episode, as early as that, we see that she has the ability to not believe that all vampires are bad. She at first she's she has that reaction, but then as she starts thinking about it, she's like, but then why did he help me all these times? And why did he do this? And why did he do that? She questions it. And so for her, she's able to see beyond what they are and what do you actually do. And I think that, that characteristic of hers makes her unique when it comes to, being a slayer. And we see that, throughout the series, but there is, in both of those, to me, I think help define her. But what do you think was really the turning point for her in Prophecy Girl? After saying, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not, I can't do it. And that speech that exchange that you were talking about, Kevin, when she says, I'm 16 years old, I don't want to die. And, of course, we're all sitting there dabbing our eyes when she says that. And if you didn't do that, then don't tell me, I don't want to know. But, there's a point at which she changes her mind and goes out to take them on. And I think there are a couple of different points at which this happens. But I would like to hear what you guys' thoughts are on that, and when you think that it was definitive for her to get beyond her personal feelings and, maybe not embrace it with love, but accept her role. Anna, you get to go first this time.
Oh, this is a hard one to go first on. I'm trying.
Well, we can make somebody else go if you want.
I wouldn't mind that.
Okay, Beth, do you want to go?
Beth, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll tackle this. For me, that moment is when Willow is, they're sitting in Willow's bedroom, and Willow has that great line about it wasn't our world anymore, it was theirs.
Yeah.
And I think that's the moment when Buffy was like, I have to do this. This isn't just about me. This is about my friends. This is about my school. This is about my entire world. And so I think that was really the turning point for her, hearing Willow say those words and seeing how dramatic the event had been for Willow, I think really was a catalyst for her.
Right. Because it was after the fact. It wasn't in the heat of the moment either.
Right.
They were talking about it afterwards. So, okay. Anna, are you ready yet, or should I go to Kevin?
No, that was it. I was sitting like trying to remember, because I watched it last night, but it was kind of late, and I was trying to remember what happened. But yeah, it was definitely that moment in Willow's room when they had that. Yeah. And I think that kind of mirrors the first episode too, because it was Willow that pushed her. Right. And it's a really nice little bookend for that.
Yeah, they do like the bookends.
Yeah.
Kevin.
But for me, and this is definitely a lot of overthinking, but that's part of the fun, I think, with Buffy in this case. Each of those points, like, what Beth brought up, and Anna's commenting on, that makes sense in viewing the episode. But to me, I think emotionally, when that happened for Buffy, I'm not saying she just went along with it, but I think, yes, for that conversation with Willow and some of the other things that were happening there, she's like, okay, to a certain degree, it's like, it's got to be me. It's not like there's someone else here who can step up. But as far as her actual embrace of it, for what we see in season 1, I think it's more after she goes to see the master and he is able to, almost, or does kill her, if you will. And when she gets revived and stands up and looks around and says, and everyone's, Angel and Xander are concerned, and she's like, no, I feel strong. I think she finally at that point is when, okay, this is the worst they're going to deal to me. I got this. Let's go. And that's when I think we see her truly, right down to the hero's walk and the fruit punch mouth and everything else. She's just gone, okay, I got this.
Yeah, and there's one the fruit punch mouth reminds me of when she first got down to see the master, and she said something to him, and he said, "Oh, this must be the feeble banter part of the fight." And I thought, okay, that guy was great too. Mark Metcalf was great in that role. But okay, I like that. I like that moment as well. Davior. You're muted, bud.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm gonna go slight because both of you have kind of said, Beth, you said it, and Kevin, you said something too, of things that I was thinking of initially. But I think it was, for me, the scene with Joyce. And I want to give, Kristen Sutherland a shout out here, who hasn't been spoken about yet, and who is such a, impact on the show. I think, and kind of talking about that prom story that she has, yeah. I think there is something in that moment that, and it's kind of like in Sarah's performance, Sarah Gellar's performance, that for me kind of clicks in that this is what I have to do. That maybe I'm not, because every hero kind of has that moment where they realize that they fight for other people, not for themselves. And I think there's something in that story. And again, I'm taking most of this from just the reactions that Sarah Michelle is giving in that moment, where she seems to have a realization about something. And I think to the same thing that you all were saying that happens with Willow, I think it's the same outcome, that I'm fighting for other folks. And I think that's just when it happens for me, that I see, where I think it's solidified.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good scene also, because throughout the series, we don't always have, or throughout the season, there are some moments when you want to give Joyce a smack upside the head. I mean, in my case, figuratively, because I'm not a violent person, but because you're thinking, can you really be that dense about what your kid needs? But raising teenagers is not the easiest thing. It's very rewarding, but it's not the easiest thing.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, and that is a good moment where they have that interaction. And Marks.
Yes, you're all correct. Yeah, no.
You go away. Everybody's right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, being a hero is about fighting for other people, and not just. I think there's different levels of hero. Maybe not just fighting for maybe the people but also just the strangers too. So, so it's multiple level with Willow. It's, seeing how scared Willow was. She's going to fight for Willow and her friends, but also it's these other kids, the innocent people that were slaughtered and stuff, and all the other innocent people that will die if she doesn't do something. I don't know if I feel that Buffy made that connection with Joyce's speech or not, but I think she does, maybe after talking to Willow, make that connection a little bit. You just got to kind of show up, do your thing, and see what happens. And Yeah, and I love how many times people love that dress. I love how that was a running
Yeah,
gag.
that is hilarious.
Well, and I almost,
That.
for me, I feel like the dress is almost like her armor, you
Mhm.
know? Like when she puts that dress on, like she's going out to fight, and everyone commenting on it, it's almost like that. Look at her strength. Look at how, like, you know, I don't know. It just really felt like something more than just a dress.
Yeah.
Anna, that's a great point, because especially when she puts the jacket on over the
Mhm.
dress, it's kind of like, this is it. That for me is really the moment where she's like, I'm both of these people. I'm
Yes.
going to be this teenager, but I'm also going to be this warrior. And I'm
Yes.
going to have on this leather jacket with this prom dress and then go whoop some tail. And that to me was kind of like the perfect kind of costume moment for that character.
Yeah,
That's a great
definitely.
point.
Yeah, and the fact that everybody comments on the dress is kind of amusing. It happened. I mean, just about every character that she comes into contact with says that. But you're right. I think that's a really good point, that it does kind of reflect two different things for her. You know, it's her mom got it for her because she saw her looking at it, because yes, you know, she is a 16-year-old girl who appreciates, you know, a pretty dress, and yet at the same time she's this other person as well. And but to be able to wear it, to say, okay, I'm going to be pretty in my dress, but I'm still going to go do this, is, you know, something significant. And I think, you know, she'd already made the decision when she talked to Willow, but I think that when she went in and you know, the discussion between Jenny and Giles, and when Giles is talking about how he's going to go do it, and she's like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I think that was kind of the final linchpin for her, you know, too, that to say, yeah, you can't be doing that, because she had given him a hard time about not being a field operative, you know, that he just was this watcher. So anyway, I did think that also, even if she had already made the decision, which I do believe she had, it seemed as though that kind of solidified it for her. Like, okay, well, if he's ready to go out and do it, then I'd better get myself, you know, in that spot.
Mhm.
Now let's talk about the finale, which we've talked about a bit, but, and you know, what were some of your favorite moments, and how do you think that it kind of helps set up season 2 without giving a whole lot away? I mean, we have no idea. There might be someone who watches this who is watching it along with us and doesn't know what's to come. But we'll say for the next season, how do you think that it helps set up season 2? Maybe with giving a little bit away, but not, you know, not like talking about the end of season 7 or something. But for season 2, we're good. And Beth, you're first this time.
First of all, can we talk about the fact that Buffy is pushed into a pool of water and dies, and when she gets back up and comes back to life, she looks amazing. Like her hair is suddenly like all down and like styled, and like she's like, her dress is not dirty or wet at all, and she's like, let's go be awesome. And it's like, that's the superpower I want, is that I can die in a puddle and come back looking better than ever. In fact, I love that line she has where she says, I might be dead, but I'm still pretty. And I just love that line. And I think, you know, Anna mentioned bookends before. I love that, you know, the pilot episode, Buffy is she's so reluctant and so like, oh, I'm done with that. I don't want to be the Slayer. I don't want anything to do with this world. And when we go out in Prophecy Girl, she is so confident, and she has embraced who she is and what she is. And so she is really a total opposite of how she began the season. And I think that's a great setup for this. You know, certainly Buffy still has all these teenage struggles to go through with all the things that, again, we have all been through, but she's coming at it from this position where she knows who she is. She knows what she is here to do. And I love that sense of confidence and boldness that we see in her at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's funny. I hadn't really thought about it, but one of the things that I did wonder about was when she came up and she said, "I feel good," "I feel strong." Obviously, the master got some kind of power from her by feeding on her because he was able to break through. Maybe she got something too.
I've wondered the same.
Yeah, and I don't remember that really occurring to me at other times. And I've seen that episode countless times, but anyway, that I did wonder about that.
Mhm.
Kevin.
Well, a couple different things, and I touched on them a little bit actually in my first comments. But the fact that this, to me, is very much the beginning of the Scooby Gang, true Scooby
Mhm.
Gang, and that comes in
Exactly.
this episode, and we're going to see it for 6 more seasons. Um, but we don't know it yet, and I won't be spoilery, but anyone who has watched the show will know where I'm going. Another thing that I love about what happens here is we appear to see near the end of the episode that Buffy is like all set. She came out, she did it, and all is good. And as we know, that's not going to be the case. Emotionally, she's got a lot of stuff to deal with. And I love that the show is going to go there. It's not just always we do these amazing, incredible things with our heroine or our leader, and they're bulletproof and therefore they're emotionally great. No, we're going to see some of that ripple effect come forward in the beginning of the next season and for the next 6 seasons. So I love that that's an underlying part of what's there. It's part for me about what makes a rewatch so great is knowing as we see the early, if you will, the tip of the iceberg of something that's going
Mhm.
to happen, and we definitely get it here. And just emotionally, I can't help but jump off the couch, do a fist pump, and do a yeah every time I see them do that hero walk to the theme song, complete with Buffy punching out a vampire. That's just
On
like
the
that
way. Yeah.
encapsulates the whole first season of Buffy right there.
Okay. Davior?
Yeah, for me, I think it is when she is revived and comes back stronger. I think the thing that sticks out about Prophecy Girl for the remainder of Buffy moving forward is the resilience that she has. Because I don't want to think that she got something from the master, just for me. But I like the idea that when she comes back from that, it's like, I just faced death and I'm still here. And
Mhm.
that is something that kind of gives her this strength of, yeah, I can do this, or I can take this guy, and I think that resilience, no matter how down she gets, no matter the things that Buffy faces, it's always that resilience and that fortitude that kind of comes through and makes her like this legendary slayer that we know she's going to become. So I would say that's the thing that sticks out from that episode that's going to carry on through that show.
Okay. Well, I guess, excuse me, to your point about about whether she got something from the master, I didn't mean
Mm.
for what I was thinking in terms of actual physical strength, that was that maybe it was bolstered a little bit
Mm.
because I think I agree with you completely on the psychological um, angle, but you would think that somebody who just had almost drowned, even if you are the slayer, that it might take a minute for you to get your composure. So, but it's Buffy, so we're not going to worry about it too much. We'll just roll with it.
Yeah.
Marks?
Yep. Yeah, I thought that too. Whenever she came back, I was like, did she get some kind of power boost? I don't know. And she is like kind of more badass after the season in a way, because I was watching this season going, she's tough, but she's not the same as quite as powerful as she is in later seasons. But I'm assuming a psychological boost and just experience. But I thought it was a great finale. It did everything a good finale should, and I do like how Kevin said, this show always deals with the internal conflict in all the characters, and they don't shy away from that. And they're always very good about being consistent with that and going with the after effects of things, especially with Buffy dealing with all this stuff. Like you don't see it very often. Like in Hunger Games, you see it, but there's not a lot of shows that deal with it a whole lot, or at least not for very long. And I was so surprised when I watched this season that I guess because I watched 15 seasons of Supernatural with the rewatch, I was like, man, there's like no gore, there's like no blood or anything in the show. It's like
I noticed the same thing, Mark. So they're really good at not cutting the camera angle just so you don't see anything.
I was like, wow, I forgot how like PG violence this really is compared to Supernatural. Yeah, the only complaint I have this whole finale was the anointed one. I was like, man, that's all build up for not much of anything with the anointed one.
Right. It's like, what was his whole purpose? To lead her to,
Yeah.
Okay, Anna.
Well, my annoying thing that bothered me, since you just talked about one, was Angel saying that he didn't have breath. Like, how are you talking? You're like, what? Like, that makes no sense.
Well, they don't actually breathe oxygen or something like that.
Like,
is what the problem.
Yeah, your body's still taken in. Like, anyway, so that's fine.
It's magic.
We got way more questions like that, Anna, coming out.
The moment that I actually would like to end on is honestly just something that just made me crack up, which was when there was Cordelia was blocking the doors and the vampire like stuck his arm out and she bit him and said, how do you like it?
Yeah, that was great.
And it was just like, I mean, Cordelia has come so far.
Yeah.
So it's so Cordelia, it just cracked me up. Anyways, that has really not much to do with future seasons, but it was my like favorite moment, I think.
Well, it shows that she kind of embraces the the world that she's been shown.
Well, and I think a lot of like the characters that we see that like experience things that are supernatural, right? They write it off in different ways. Like, oh, it was the gas leak, or it was this, or it was that kind of stuff. And Cordelia is kind of like the only one that's like, oh, hey, Buffy, like you deal with weird shit, right?
Yeah, right.
You need your help. And she's the first person to do that. And she's the first person to sort of open her eyes to what is going on in Sunnydale. And that, I mean, is part of the thing. I mean, we all know by what happens by the end of season 3 with the rest of the graduating class. So, I mean, they definitely, I think, laying down some groundwork in there.
Right. Now, that's funny that you mentioned that particular line because I loved that too. I thought that was great. I thought, oh, it's very Cordelia, but it's also, fits the show and the situation so perfectly. So, yes. And that is actually a good note for us to end on when we're talking about the finale, unless there's a burning issue that one or the other of you would like to bring up, something that we haven't touched on that you really feel we should discuss.
Well, just a real quick teaser going forward, much along what Anna is talking about. I think it's very fascinating the view that Cordelia is the Buffy path not taken by her not going in the Cordelia direction because of the Scooby Gang and her slayerage, if you will. So I just think it's funny to watch the two of them interweave, sometimes being very similar and then very different. So it's just fascinating to see that part.
Yeah, it is. And one thing, I had talked about it earlier that in episode 11, how we finally got to see that there was more to Cordelia than what we had seen previously. Because let's face it, she was the person you love to hate because she's so good at it. She was so good at being this rotten, mean girl, and yet it's hard to feel any kind of empathy or any kind of identification at all with someone who's considered a main character because she's in the credits, so she's going to be in every episode. But if you don't give her some kind of some kind of sympathetic characteristic that people can identify with and say, oh, well, now I know why she's like this. Or, this doesn't excuse behavior, but it makes the person more three-dimensional instead of just being that one thing. And, I think that being able to see that and experience it, watching it, it's not as though from my own perspective, it's not as though I haven't done a rewatch of the whole series with every episode in a row before, but it's always nice to experience those kinds of things again. And one thing I want to ask, though, before we go, because we didn't really talk about the episode of Angel, does anybody else remember the first time they saw that episode and what your reaction was to finding out he was a vampire? I mean, I try to relive that, whenever I see that, and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, because I thought it was a complete surprise to me the first time I saw it. Was it for Marks? You watched it from the beginning. Was it like that for you?
I can't remember if it was a complete surprise or not, but it was a surprise. I think there was like, is he really an angel, or or something else, and because the world's so fresh and you don't know what's real or possible.
We knew there was something about him, but for it to be that was kind of a surprise. Was anybody else surprised by it?
I think by the time I was watching, there had already been like promo out where he was, because I started, I think, around season 2.
Yeah, you said you had started.
So
I for me, that surprise was spoiled.
Yeah, I was spoiled. I mean, but also, I can barely remember because I was 9.
Yeah, right. Should take that into account. Yes.
Yeah, same here. I started in season 2, but I think Mark's made a great point. I mean, I think that would have been awesome if they present the idea was, well, maybe he's an angel, because also he gives her the cross also. So maybe kind of presenting himself as like a spiritual character, that would have been really fun to experience initially. So hate I didn't have that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it was for me. It was. I thought, okay, well, if they can do this, if they can surprise me like that, I'm on board. Because for me, that's one thing that I always appreciate in whatever genre I happen to be watching. I like as long as the surprise fits. As long as it doesn't come out of left field so far that you didn't even know there was a left field. Whatever.
I think it's another thing that this show's great at, and they tell us they're great at it. But the very first scene of Buffy with Darla and that twist.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're great. Like, and I think Beth mentioned it too, like Sid the puppet. I forgot how that episode went exactly until I rewatched it, and it tricked me again. And
Same here, and I've seen it multiple times, and it's still like, oh yeah. Yeah.
And then because they do such a good job of building it up. One of the things that I thought was hilarious about that particular episode was when they talk, when after Xander has taken him so that Buffy can go talk to the ventriloquist guy alone without Sid, and Xander has him in the library and he puts him in the chair, and then he gets up to go get something to drink or something, and when he comes back, Sid's gone, and he's like, he's gone, and all 3 of them are looking at the ground.
Even Giles jumps, which I love, because
that was great, because that would kind of be a reaction if there were a puppet. But anyway, I hope that all of you have enjoyed as much as I have talking about what I'm pretty sure shall always remain my favorite show. And I really appreciate you being willing to be here. We appreciate everyone who's been watching with us. We do appreciate anybody who watches this later on as well. And if you would like to actually participate with us and, make a few comments here and there, ask us questions, you can sign into StreamYard to do that for our next broadcast, which will be for season 2 at the end of October. So stay tuned to the Facebook page to find out when that is. The date, I believe, is October 27th. And I look forward to seeing folks here again to talk about season 2. Thanks so much to all of you, my wonderful panelists. I hope that you have enjoyed this. And we will say goodnight to everyone who's been watching with us. Thanks all.
Have fun.
Bye.
Night.
Hey.